Well, hey guys, some of you asked me after I did my review for Montale's Oud tobacco how similar it is to Tom Ford's Tobacco Oud, which I only have a little bit left. How similar are these two? Night and day. If you look at the colors, that's how different they are. Dark, not dark. But I'm going to tell you what the differences are coming right up. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Sebastian with Smelling Great Fragrance Reviews. Yes, I did receive some questions from you guys asking me how these two fragrances compare, and they compare so differently. In fact, nothing is similar about one or the other. They were completely different. The experience is different, and they smell absolutely completely different. So there's lots of differences here. The only thing that's similar is the names, I guess. Tobacco Oud versus Oud Tobacco. They're a little reversed, and perhaps they called this one Oud Tobacco because this existed, because I know Tom Ford trademarks all their fragrances. That's probably why this is reversed. But I'm going to tell you all about these two fragrances and how different they are. There's no similarities whatsoever, as I said. But before I get to the comparison, if this is your first time tuning into the channel and you still haven't subscribed, please do click the subscribe button below and also click the bell so that you'll be notified for future videos and giveaways. So how many of you caught my review for Oud Tobacco from Montale? If you haven't caught it, please do go catch it, because there is something I liked about this particular fragrance, the fact that they're using a note that I had not seen in fragrances before, and it's the note of sumac, a Middle Eastern spice. It's not poison sumac, which a lot of probably Americans are used to, or if you're into music, you're probably used to Ima sumac, but this is you know, the spice of sumac that's consumed in the Middle East. It's a tart, lemony herb or herbal kind of spice to me. I'm always like falling back on herb, because for me it reminds me of an herb, because the texture of the fragrance is very herb-like once it's been ground. But it's like a berry that's dried, and it turns into the spice that has a very lemony quality to it. So it's used in place of lemon in certain things when you want a tartness but you don't want that kind of like really sour quality of lemons, you use this particular spice. So that's what the cool thing about this fragrance was. And before I saw notes or anything and learned about it, I was excited about it, thinking it might go in this direction, because this, I believe, is discontinued from Tom Ford. There are some discounters selling it on Tom Ford website. The only one that's listed is 50 ml, and it says out of stock. So I don't know what the reality of that particular fragrance is, but get yourself a bottle if you like it. But that's what I was expecting from this, but I got it, I smelled it, and I got a completely different experience with it. So different, and I was like, where's the tobacco? And according to Montale's website, it says they're doing the Tonka bean tobacco accord. So in other words, they're not giving us real tobacco for this fragrance, and Tonka beans have a tobacco-like accord, and that's where we're getting the tobacco nuances of this fragrance. Because for me, it doesn't really act like tobacco. And the kind of tobacco that I really love is the ashy tobacco, because I love that smell, because I grew up around relatives that smoked like there's no tomorrow, and I was, you know, smelling all this. So I like tobacco fragrances, and it's definitely prominent here. This is a real tobacco smell. In comparison to this is not. For me also here, the oud is not so prominent. It's not really loud. It doesn't stand out too much. So it's a light kind of oud experience. And here, it is oudy, but I think it's definitely the Western kind of oud. It's not like the authentic, all-natural oud that's very expensive. So definitely it's the Western kind of oud, but you know, it doesn't really matter in this experience, because this smells fantastic in comparison to this. Because when I'm wearing this goes fruity tart. Almost like grape soda, I was going to say, because it reminds me of grapes, like fizzy kind of sparkling kind of effervescent grapes. That's the experience I get with it. And I think it's because of the sumac. The sumac herb or spice is very kind of fruity in this particular fragrance, or we're kind of getting an accord created with the different notes that's giving us this kind of fruity quality here. But to me, it wears like grape soda, berry soda, something soda-like in a can of soda, which I don't ever drink anymore. But even though this is in a can too, so when I'm wearing it, it's reminding me of like a berry, grapes, strawberry, something very, very like kiddish kind of a soda that I was used to when I was very, very young. So the great thing about the fragrance, as I said, is because I learned a lot about sumac as a note. But for me, it's not a tobacco fragrance. Just not one of my favorite fragrances from Montale. And even though I don't hate the fragrance, it's not one that I'm going to be gravitating towards quite a bit. Because when you have fragrances like this that I really, really love, this one doesn't compare. And I guess maybe it doesn't justify to compare these two because they're so different. But the only reason we're doing this is because a lot of you were asking me how they compare, and their names are so similar, but when I'm wearing it, I'm not getting much tobacco with this one. But here, with this one, as I said, this one is kind of on its way out. Some discounters do have it. Tom Ford's website doesn't have it. I don't know how it is in Europe. Please do check. But tobacco, oud, spices, whiskey, sandalwood, cinnamon, coriander, patchouli. It's just very much like you're in this room with lots of smokers. You can smell the ashtray. It's dirty. It's ashy. There's some smoke smell in there. Somebody's drinking whiskey or some kind of a liqueur, a spirit. But you have all this. There's some spices. Maybe you can smell some spices in the background. Maybe it's close to a kitchen. I don't know. But the experience is fantastic. There is a little bit of a cumin touch in here. And I think the spices that they're crediting to has a little bit of like a cumin, coriander, maybe a little bit. They credit cinnamon, but maybe a little bit cloves or nutmeg or something like that as well. But it's kind of like a potpourri of spices thrown in here, but I do get lots of cumin. But this is a fantastic release. It's a great, great release. It's sad, I think it's on its way out. But again, as I said, they don't compare similarly whatsoever. The price of this as a 50 ml on Tom Ford's website is $250. 100 ml for this one is $170. But if you're curious about both, I suggest getting samples. And then if you like this one, I think you should run out and get a bottle because it is on its way out. I think that it is. But maybe just Tom Ford's completely out of stock with this fragrance. I don't know. I don't even know how successful this is, but I have heard negative things about this fragrance because it is quite ashy. It is a little dirty, and there is a little bit of a muskiness under there, but there's brightness all around it, with all those like muddy, dark notes that are all kind of like interconnected in here. But it smells fantastic. I absolutely love this one. And sad about this one, I generally like Montale fragrances, but I feel like they did not give me what I wanted in an oud tobacco fragrance because they're known for oud. They're known for oud, basically, not tobacco. This is the first time I'm seeing tobacco here from Montale, and it's nothing like it. And even though this has red color and Mancera has, there's connected brands, this smells nothing like red tobacco either. I have a separate video on the channel comparing red tobacco to Carlisle from Parfums de Marly. I find those two similar, but this comes not close to red tobacco whatsoever either. They're so different. So different. This just to me is a fruity, I don't know if I would call it an oriental either because not a lot of vanillic touches, just a fruity aromatic or fruity woody, something in that kind of a style. So it's just a little bit of a misleading name. I much prefer red tobacco. I like its ruggedness. I love its roughness and its intensity. This one is also not as intense and as aggressive as red tobacco. This one is. I think the notes in here are those kind of notes, and it might be off-putting to some, but I much prefer this one. And I think it's closely tied with red tobacco. I like both of them for what they are. This one doesn't have too much vanillic ambery notes like red tobacco does. But again, as I said, it's miles apart between this one, and red tobacco. And hopefully that explains some of what you guys were asking for about these two fragrances. Go catch my review of this. I recommend you do to learn a little bit more about Sumac. And then I do have a review of this one on the channel with Dahlia. But I think we're comparing this to a fragrance called Tobacco Nuit from Atelier Cologne. So you can catch that video to learn more about this one. But that's all I have to say about these two fragrances. A little disappointing about Montale, but I don't hate the fragrance. It's just not what I was expecting. One more scenario similar to this I should also mention: the comparison of Honey Oud from Floris to Honey Oud from Montale. In that particular scenario, they didn't change the names, although Honey Oud with Floris is OUD and Honey Oud from Montale is AOUD. Very, very different fragrances. In that particular comparison, I have a separate video on those two on the channel as well, if you're curious to learn about them. And even though both fragrances were different takes on the Honey Oud combo, I like both of those fragrances, but this just kind of a little bit falls flat for me, unfortunately. Anyway, I don't want to talk too much, but hopefully you guys understand what I'm trying to say here with these two fragrances. Let me know if you've sampled both of these fragrances, Tobacco Oud and Oud Tobacco. Let me know what you think, and if you've compared the two, or if you like either one or the other. I'd like to find out how this is being received out there in the world now that it's definitely out there for us. Anyway, thanks so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions or comments, please do list below. Otherwise, please like this video, please share it, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye.